name is Sandra Asante. Today we'll be talking about the 7,000 schools damaged in Tigray and Ethiopia's economy battered by the Tigray war. So don't go anywhere, we'll be back after the break. You're welcome back from the break. Thank you for staying with me. We'll start off with the damaged schools in Tigray. And the war in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region has forced over 1.42 million students out of school, with more than 7,000 schools damaged, the education minister says. Getihan Mekuria said neighboring Amhara and Afar regions will also be affected, with the fighting having spread to these regions. Already, hundreds of schools in Amhara and Afar have been vandalized in the ongoing fighting in the past month, he stated. The civilians' infrastructure in the region has been damaged in the 10-month war. Thousands of people have been killed, millions others displaced since the conflict began in November last year, with hundreds of thousands others requiring humanitarian assistance. Away from the damaged schools, we are looking at the battered economy in terms of the Tigray war. So Ethiopia's 10-month conflict has come to a huge human cost, with thousands killed, millions displaced, and many in desperate need of assistance. But that's not the only damage being done to Africa's second most populous nation. The war has incurred a huge economic cost too that could be taking years to repair. In the capital, Addis Ababa, 26-year-old Tigist, who didn't want her full name to be used, says two reasons: the war that broke out in the northern region of Tigray in November and the COVID-19 pandemic. Before COVID and the conflict, I would pay 1,000 birr each month for groceries. Now I spend 2,000 birr, she says. Things are more expensive now. Phones, food and clothes as well are quite expensive. Official statistics show the cost of basic consumer goods has indeed gone up in Ethiopia. They were on average around a quarter more expensive in July than a year earlier. Tigist is working as a supermarket cashier to support her family. She's responsible for the food shopping while her brother covers the rent. Also, the dollar exchange has not been good, she added. Last year, $1 for you could get 35 birr. Now it gets 45. Faisal Robel, a US-based analyst who specializes in the Horn of Africa, says that spending on the war effort has really negatively impacted Ethiopia's capacity to access dollars and has caused the exchange rate to deteriorate. It is not clear how much the war has cost, but trading economies forecast military expenditure will reach $502 million by the end of the year, up from $460 million last year. Last year, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the conflict has drained over $1 billion from the country's coffers prior to the global pandemic and the war. Ethiopia's economy was one of the fastest growing in the region, expanding by an average of 10% in the decade to 2019, according to the World Bank. While Tigist is referring to the official rate available in banks, the birr has fallen even further in the informal markets. Mr. Robelli says it has now reached 67 birr against the dollar. He adds that business owners in the country are nervous about the worsening security situation as the war spread beyond Tigray and into the neighboring region of Amhara and Afar. Many are draining their accounts and taking their cash to money traders on the border with the self-declared Republic of Somaliland, and thus forcing the birr's value to drop even lower, Mr. Rebel stated and concluded on that. So now let's look at the bank's that are closed down in Tigray. The civil war started when the party in power in Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, and federal military bases had issues in November amidst an escalating feud with Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed over the dissolution of the ruling coalition and the postponement of elections. Since then, Ethiopia's military as well as its Eritrean allies, state police forces and local militias have fought a bloody war against Tigrayan fighters. Both sides have been accused of committing atrocities including rape and mass civilian killings. That is the government and the militia. So Tigray has been without basic services including telecommunications and banks since the federal government instigated a blockade on its June after the forces recaptured the regional capital, Mekelle. More than 400,000 people in Tigray are already living in famine-like conditions, while aid distribution has been stifled and electricity and fuel supplies are dwindling, pushing prices up. Mekelle resident Philemon Behan told BBC. Mekelle resident Philemon and Behan told BBC Tigrayan that food and rent have recently skyrocketed. There is no money as all the banks are closed and government forces are not paying salaries, he stated. Now let's look at the mobile phone auction hit. Internationally, the war is having a huge impact on Ethiopia's reputation as a place to invest, says economist Edgar Erasmus from NKC African Economics Consultancy Group. If your consumers are under severe pressure from high inflation, you don't see consumer-driven growth as we see in the US or the Eurozone, she says. Generally, that leads the foreign investment to really drive growth, and it's exactly this that's been attacked by reputational risk. Ms. Erasmus points to the recent liberalization of Ethiopia's telecom sector, which originally attracted interest from the number of providers, including South African telecoms giant MTN. In the end, though, only one company successfully bid for either of the two telecoms licenses on offer, a consortium led by Kenya's Safaricom, which pledged $850 million. While rules that military restricted new license holders from operating a mobile money system and dampened investors' interest, industry sources says the Tigray conflict also weighed heavily on investors' minds. Pressure to end war, that's what you're looking at right now. And Ethiopia's overall economic growth for this year is forecast to slow significantly from 6% in 2020 to just 2% in 2021, the lowest level almost 2 decades according to the IMF. The country imports about $14 billion of goods per year, while it exports just $3.4 billion. Also worrying economy observers is Ethiopia's national debt, which some expect to reach $60 billion this year, or nearly 70% of GDP. This is a consecutive estimate, says Ms. Erasmus, adding Ethiopia's military spend could be higher than forecast, and it has taken on unreported debt in the past. While the U.S. has imposed some visa restrictions on Ethiopians involved in the war, it withheld some spending so far. The international community has been reluctant to exert maximum economic pressure on the government or cut generous aid programs. Around a quarter of the population live below the national poverty line, and the average yearly income is just $850 per person. This is clearly scope for ratcheting up the sanctions in Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Does not de-escalate the conflict, says Whitney Schietzman, the non-resident follower with the Brookings think tank in Washington. The Biden's administration dilemma, says Mr. Schietzman, is to put enough pressure on Mr. Abiy to end the war without isolating Ethiopia completely. All tools are on the table, but you've got 110 billion people. You can't make the nation a pariah. It's too difficult, too strategic, he says. He concluded with that. We hope everything turns out fine in Ethiopia. This is where I end today's editorial. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Sandra Asante. Do have an amazing day.